While in the midst of making my next video essay, I had this idea for an incredibly stupid video that I thought would be hilarious to make. It also would be way more low effort than my other stuff, so it felt a lot easier to do. To the few dozen subscribers I have, this video will not have the cerebral content you may have subbed to see, so I do apologize. It also has very little to do with gaming. With that out of the way, let's get to what the title of this video said this was. A few quick notes before we begin. The title may say the Charlie tier list, but I also included some Charleses since they are essentially conjoined names. No Chucks, though. It simply would not be fair to the rest of the competition if Chuck Norris was involved. And, because there are potentially hundreds of names that could go on this list, I stuck to only the Charlies and Charles that I know off the top of my head that are of some famous status. I may do some brief research to learn more about the Charlie if I don't know much past their name, but nothing too in depth. That way, it is both as sincere as possible, and no one can get mad that I left their favorite Charlie off the list. Well, they can certainly be mad, but I have my excuse now. The criteria for his quote unquote best is purely up to me, as this is a tier list of my opinions, not a critical analysis of which Charlie has done the most good for humanity or whatever. Before we begin, this tier list is sponsored by Draft Queens. Ladies, don't let the men be the only ones gambling their life savings away. It is always better to see more women in male-dominated fields. Let's start with music producer and songwriter Charlie Puth. I haven't seen him raked over the coals on social media, which means he can range from either equaling Mother Teresa or just being under the problematic threshold that no one cares to point it out. Personally, I have his song Attention on my liked songs, which is probably the highest honor I could give to any musician or music creator. Not much else to say, really. I think that's A tier. Charlie Sanders. Honestly, I only know this dude exists because of my grandfather being a huge Detroit Lions fan. So while I could spend a bunch of boring hours looking up these stats and all the stuff that make him such a memorable football player, I don't really care. Let me just double check that he didn't pull the classic domestic violence that NFL players love so much. Nope, he actually seemed like a pretty stand up guy. A tier it is. Actually, no. B tier. Because the Lions suck, and I hate the fact that I have to root for this team. Sorry, Sanders. Try telling your team not to choke against the 49ers. Charlie from the Charlie Bit My Finger video. I mean, pretty easy, right? The kid bit Bro's finger. Charlie's a twat. Hopefully his time in the slammer changed him for the better, since this video is older than half the people on YouTube these days. Charlie could be roaming the streets right now, ready to bite again. Sick son of a bitch. Unless... Hold on, rewind the tape. The kid who got bit deliberately stuck his finger near Charlie's mouth, even after stating that Charlie already bit him. Right there. Charlie's not a criminal. He was set up. This is a classic case of entrapment. Charlie, I'm sorry I couldn't see it before. Still C tier though. Want to hear something funny? The first movie I ever saw with Charles Xavier was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And as much as I want to put him in C tier for how bad that movie was, especially because Doctor Strange is my favorite Marvel character, that doesn't feel very fair. So what I'm going to do is quickly watch all of the X-Men movies right now, and then I'll come back with my verdict. Alright, I'm back. Gotta say, some of those movies were high-key amazing, and Charles himself is a pretty stand-up guy. Except for the, well, S tier. Charlie Bucket, aka the kid from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I gotta admit, I hated this movie when I watched it at 4 years old, because I thought Willy Wonka torturing the misbehaving children was cruel as hell. And though I understand now it was meant to be funny because the children were a-holes, it still doesn't excuse 8th Amendment violations. But I can't hold that against Charlie here. Just like how I can't hold against Charlie the fact that Grandpa Joe was a real piece of work for laying around for years only to get up out of bed to go to the fictional equivalent of Hershey's Chocolate World. Nor the fact that when I brought this up as a 4-year-old, I was told that I didn't know what I was talking about, yet now I see memes about this exact thing here and there, and I can't help but feel like I pioneered the bit as a wee lad. Charlie's fine, who cares? A tier. Charlie D'Amelio. For contributing to the decline of the world's attention span through her platform of TikTok makes me instantly want to throw her in C tier. But as someone who has never installed TikTok, I haven't actually seen or heard about her in years, which is quite a relief considering there are many celebrities who I feel I am given knowledge about against my Will Smith. Actually, the last thing I do remember about her is her facing the huge backlash for complaining she didn't reach 100 million followers or whatever fast enough. And then she lost a ton in return. Yeah, C tier feels right. King Charles III. I know he's like the king right now of England or the UK or wherever that is. He has been for a few years now, ever since the last queen bid it. As an American, I think I'm obligated to hate the royals, whoever they are. But just given the whole Princess Diana stuff, I am perfectly capable of despising the monarchy without needing a patriotic push. Also, there's some questionable stuff he stands for and affairs, and yeah, toss him in C tier. Charlie Brown. Fun side story for you. I loved fruit snacks as a kid, and I still do, to be honest. And when my mom bought some that were based off of peanuts, I was immensely upset because I genuinely thought they weren't fruit snacks, since I wasn't aware that the whole Charlie Brown cinematic universe was referred to as peanuts. So that really ruined several months of my life. Lots of elementary school lunches ruined without their fruit snacks. Until I saw my brother open up a pack, when the truth was revealed to me. Unfortunately, this revelation came at the expense of him taking the last fruit snack pack, so I had to wait until my parents bought me more. Except they never did buy more, because according to them, no one was eating the fruit snacks, so they didn't see the need to buy more since they took up cupboard space. So I tried to explain to them that I did want fruit snacks, but I wasn't eating them because I thought they were peanuts. So the next time they went to the store, they finally got more. A few months later, they got divorced. A tier. Charlie Kirk. Gotta say, I really liked his hit single, We Are Charlie Kirk, even if the song doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Music is weird like that, huh? Other than that, though, I don't know too much about him, other than the fact that he got the Sniper Elite treatment. Let me do some quick Googling.
A few moments later.
Charlie Chaplin is a very important historical figure, probably one of the most well known actors of his time. I did try watching some of his best films, but I ran into some trouble with the website I used to pirate media. Usually it works like a charm, but for some reason the audio just wasn't working and the movies were like completely silent, which really was pissing me off. So I just gave up. B tier it. Wait, this just in. Apparently Chaplin was exiled from the United States because he spoke up for liberal causes and was targeted by McCarthyism, plus the FBI. Absolutely based. Up to a. Wait, more just came in. Apparently, he married an 18-year-old when he was 54. Let's just stick with B and move on. Yo, my boy Charlie Dompler, his last name is Dompler, by the way, is the absolute GOAT. Single handedly, the best smiling friend, besides Gleb, Alan, and Tyler. He's always going around making people's day better, never says no to a request for a smile, and even did me a huge solid by holding on to my Terra the android until I got out of the hospital. Nothing but respect on Charlie's name, automatic S tier. I will not hear any other arguments. Charlie Kelly. Let's be honest, this could go in any direction. Kelly has done some pretty heinous stuff, between lying about having cancer, putting a kid in a coma, selling drugs, among plenty of other things. But he also made me and plenty of other people laugh a lot in one of the best sitcoms of all time. So doesn't that balance it out somewhat? I don't know. I think sticking him in B tier seems fair, but I think no matter where I place him, there's going to be an argument for another spot. So, B it is. That's compromise for you folks. Charlie Day. This motherfucker starred in Pacific Rim Uprising. And if that isn't enough to get sent to C tier, then I don't know what is. I don't even know what other shows or movies he's been in. I'm so mad about how bad the second Pacific Rim movie was that he's getting sent straight to S tier, and I will not look back. Next up, Charlie Sheen. When I was writing the list for all the Charles and Charlies I knew, I don't know how I knew this guy's name because I don't know like what he's done outside of the fact that I know he's the guy who plays that dude in Two and a Half Men, but I also think I'm too much of a zoomer to really appreciate all of his best work. That being said, I did a touch of research and learned that in 2015 he told the world that he was HIV positive, which in turn saw a huge uptick in people getting tested, which is kind of cool. If he didn't have all the controversies regarding his drug use that ultimately led him to being removed from Two and a Half Men, he might even have made S tier. Alas, I think B tier is appropriate. Next is Charles Barkley. I gotta say, he's a pretty funny dude. And also, when I first was gonna write what I thought about him, I mentioned that he starred in some of my favorite memes, like the "I owe you an apology, I wasn't really familiar with your game," or the him making the funny face on Hot Ones. But then I learned that wasn't Charles Barkley at all. That was Shaquille O'Neal, and I suddenly realized I might be racist, and I spent the rest of the evening thinking about that. So I'm just gonna put Barkley in S tier because I do believe he's funny, and I'm not trying to catch any flack there. Charles Lindbergh is someone I did a presentation on in middle school, so I have a vague assortment of facts locked in my brain that are never gonna go away. You may know him as the guy who did the first solo transatlantic flight, as well as his success in flying planes for the Army as a mail carrier. Or perhaps the kidnapping of his infant son, which would later be called the crime of the century. What I ended up missing as a 12-year-old was the fact that he may have been a Nazi sympathizer, or at the very least agreed with some of the Nazi beliefs like racial strength. Since I'm not interested in doing hours of research on this, I'm just gonna stick him in B tier, because he did a lot of good things and went through some pretty awful stuff, but that's not an excuse for potentially believing in Nazi nonsense. Charles Manson. Last but not least is the YouTube streamer Moist Critical, aka Charlie. I have only seen a few of his videos, mostly because it isn't my cup of tea. I won't claim that his content is bad by any stretch. I just find a lot of the time his social commentary is typically agreeing with the popular consensus and riding that goodwill to success. Which is entirely valid and by no means a criticism of what he does, because there's more to it than just that. Not to mention the gaming side of things. Besides, I'd rather interface with Critical than his team alternative Asmongold. And Charlie has also sourced some pretty stellar memes. He's pulling his cock out! Which, at this point, you should probably know I'm an absolute sucker for. A tier. And that's all the Charlies. Gotta say, I'm really proud of this list. And a little more shocked at how many names I actually was able to conjure up in my head. I'm really eager to push this video out and then remember like the most famous Charlie of all time, so I'm looking forward to that.
I keep having this nagging feeling that I've forgotten something.
Hey, if you forgot it, it probably wasn't all that important.
Yeah, I guess.
Not much of a conclusion to say here. It all speaks for itself. Thanks for watching. See ya!